Lecture The Vedanta Philosophy Part 1. The Vedanta philosophy, as it is generally called at the present day, really comprises all the various sections that now exist in India. Thus, there have been various interpretations, and to my mind, they have been progressive, beginning with the dualistic or Dvaita and ending with the non-dualistic or Advaita. The word Vedanta literally means the end of the Vedas, and Vedas being the scriptures of the Hindus. The Vedas are divided mainly into two portions, the Karma Kand and the Janana Kand, the work portion and the knowledge portion. To the Karma Kand belong the famous hymns and the rituals of Brahmins, those books which treat of spiritual matters apart from ceremonials are called Upanishads. The Upanishads belong to the Janana Kand or portion knowledge. It is not that all the Upanishads were composed as a separate portion of the Vedas. Some are interspread among the rituals, and at least one is in Samhita or hymn portion. Sometimes the term Upanishad is applied to books which are not included in the Vedas, for example the Gita, but as a rule it is applied to the philosophical treatises scattered through the Vedas. These treatises have been collected and are called the Vedanta. Sometimes in the West by the Vedas are not meant only. The word Vedanta literally means the end of Vedas, the Vedas being the scriptures of the Hindus. Sometimes in the West by the Vedas are meant only the hymns and rituals of the Vedas. But at the present time, these paths have almost gone out of use, and usually by the word Vedas in India. The Vedanta is meant. All our commentators, when they want to quote a passage from the scriptures, as a rule, quote from the Vedanta, which has another technical name with the commentators, the Shrutis. The term Shruti, meaning that which is heard, though including the whole of the Vedic literature, is chiefly applied by the commentators to the Upanishads. Now, all the books known by the name of the Vedanta are not entirely written after the ritualistic portions of the Vedas. For instance, one of them, the Isha Upanishad, forms the 40th chapter of the Yajur Veda, that being one of the oldest parts of the Vedas. There are other Upanishads which form portions of the Brahmins or ritualistic writings, and rest of the Upanishads are independent, not comprised in any of the Brahmins or other parts of the Vedas. But there is no reason to suppose that they were entirely independent of other parts, for as we well know, many of these have been lost entirely and many of the Brahmanas have become extinct. So it is quite possible that the independent Upanishads belong to some Brahmanas which in course of time fell into disuse while the Upanishads remained. These Upanishads are also called forest books or Arankyas. The Upanishads are said to be 108 in number. Their dates cannot be fixed with certainty, only it is certain that they are older than the Buddhistic movement. Though some of the minor Upanishads contain allusions indicating a later date, yet that does not prove the later date of the treatise, as in very many cases in Sanskrit literature. The substance of a book, though of a very ancient date, receives a coating, as it were, of later events in the hands of the sectarians to exalt their particular section. The Vedanta then practically forms the scriptures of the Hindus, and all systems of philosophy that are orthodox have to take it as their foundation. Even the Buddhists and Jains, when it suits their purpose, will quote a passage from the Vedanta as authority. All schools of philosophy in India, although they claim to have been based on the Vedas, took different names for their systems. The last one, the system of Vyasa, took its stand upon the doctrines of the Vedas more than the previous systems did, and made an attempt to harmonize the preceding philosophies such as the Sankhya and the Navya with the doctrines of the Vedanta. So it is specially called the Vedanta philosophy, and the sutras or aphorism of Vyasa are in modern India the basis of the Vedanta philosophy. Again, these sutras of Vyasa have been variously explained by different commentators. In general, there are three sorts of commentators in India now. The commentaries are of various sorts, such as bhashya, tika, tipani, churni, etc., of which all except the bhasya are explanations of the text or difficult words in the text. The bhasya is not properly a commentary, but the elucidation of a system of philosophy out of texts. The object being not to explain the words, but to bring out a philosophy. So the writer of the bhasya expands his own system, taking texts as authorities for his system. There have been various commentaries of the Vedanta. Its doctrines found their final expression in the philosophical aphorisms of Vyasa. This treatise, called the Uttara Mimamsa, is the standard authority of Vedantism. Nay, it is the most authoritative exposition of the Hindu scriptures. The most antagonistic sections have been compelled, as it were, to take up the text of Vyasa and harmonize them with their own philosophy. Even in the very ancient times, the commentators on the Vedanta philosophy formed themselves into the three celebrated Hindu sections of dualist, qualified non-dualist, and non-dualist. The ancient commentaries are perhaps lost, but they have been revived in modern times by the post-Buddhistic commentators Shankara, Ramanuja, and Madhva. Shankara revived the non-dualistic form, Ramanuja the qualified non-dualistic form of the ancient commentator Bodhayana, and Madhava the dualistic form. In India, the sections differ mainly in their philosophy. The difference in rituals is slight, the basis of their philosophy and religion being the same. In general, there are three sorts of commentators in India now. From their interpretations have arisen three systems of philosophy and sections. One is the dualist or Dvaita, the second is the qualified non-dualist or Vishveshvaita, and the third is the non-dualistic or the Advaita. Of these, the dualistic and the qualified non-dualistic include the largest number of the Indian people. The non-dualists are comparatively few in number. Now I will try to lay before you the ideas that are contained in all three different sections. But before going on, I will make one remark, that these different Vedanta systems have one common psychology, and that is the psychology of the Sankhya system. The Sankhya philosophy is very much like the psychologies of Navya and Vaisheshika systems, differing only in minor particulars. All the Vedantists agree on 3 points. They believe in God, in the Vedas as revealed, and in cycles. We have already considered the Vedas. The belief about cycle is as follows. All matters throughout the universe is the outcome of one primal matter called Akasha. And all force, whether gravitation, attraction or repulsion, or life, is the outcome of one primal force called prana. Prana acting on Akasha is creating or projecting the universe. The word which is creation in English language is in Sanskrit exactly projection, because there is no section in India which believes in creation as it is regarded in the West, a something coming out of nothing. What we mean by creation is projection of that which has already existed. At the beginning of the cycle, Akasha is motionless, unmanifested. Then prana begins to act more and more, creating grosser and grosser forms out of Akasha. Plants, animals, men, stars, and so on. After an incalculable time, this evolution ceases and inevolution begins, everything being resolved back through finer and finer forms into the original Akasha and prana when the new cycle follows. Now there is something beyond Akasha and prana. Both can be resolved into a third thing called Mahat, the cosmic mind. This cosmic mind does not create Akasha and prana but changes itself into them. We will now take up the beliefs about the mind, soul, and God. According to the universally accepted Sankhya psychology, in perception, in case of vision for instance, there are first of all the instruments of vision, the eyes. Behind the instruments, the eyes, is the organ of vision or indriya, the optic nerve and its centers, which is not the external instrument but without which the eyes will not see. More still is needed for perception. The mind or manas must come and attach itself to the organ. And besides this, the sensations must be carried to the intellect or buddhi, the determinative reactive state of the mind. When the reaction comes from buddhi, along with it flashes the external world and egoism. Here then is the will, but everything is not complete. Just as every picture, being composed of successive impulses of light, must be united on something stationary to form a whole, so all the ideas in the mind must be gathered and projected on something that is stationary, relatively to the body and mind, that is, on what is called the soul or Purusha or Atma.